time on that.
No, it's not.
It needs to be in live stream. Okay, there it is. It's being live streamed. Got it. Are we live? Or we got to count down?
2 seconds. We are live now.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to all of you out there on the interwebs, especially those of you following us on YouTube live. Welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Gooner podcast. Small team today, but a lot to talk about. Lots of good things. Brighton with the Brighton results, not bad. But as usual, joining you from the United States, I'm Raphael, and joining me from London today is Sam. Welcome back, Sam.
Hello, mate. Hope everything's been well for yourself.
It's been great. I just hate these international breaks. We talk about this and football, no matter what happens to your national team, it just seems football goes dead. It's certainly Arsenal football wise, but all right, a lot to discuss. When we were last here, Arsenal was preparing to face Brighton, coming off a 3-match win streak, very encouraging 3-match win streaks, 3 clean sheets, 2 1-0 victories, and then a 3-1 thrashing of Tottenham. And I think a lot of people thought that the club would carry that momentum, or hope they could carry that momentum. A little disappointing if you are the ever the optimist, 0-0 result. But let's begin. There's some things not so good, some things pretty good, but let's begin with the conditions. I think match begins, late match, very windy, raining. Not ideal for a club that plays the way Arsenal wants to play football.
No, you've got to take into consideration, as you say, with the conditions. With the way that the South Coast is, it's very volatile, especially when the wind and the rain decides to drift in over at Brighton, because it's not like little bits of rain; it's stair-rod rain, and if you start factoring in blustery conditions, cross pitch winds that changes on a regular basis, then it makes it a bit hard to mix up your game. But we saw in that Brighton game that Arsenal tried the tiki-taka way, so to speak. Mm-hmm. We tried to move them about, get them out of position. But with Brighton, we know that they're built from the back forward, so they will be solid, compact. And once that attack then springs, they spring forward. And Cucurella on their left-hand side gives them a very different dimension to what we've experienced from them previously when I believe Trossard was playing just behind the striker or in that striking role as a false 9 or something like that, if I can't remember correctly. But with them two, it gave our right side a few headaches, but there was the resilience there, which was very good.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. I mean, you and I were talking about this before we came on the air. I've talked to other Arsenal fans about this, even during the match. I think once we got into the 70th, 80th minute, it became obvious that either this was going to be scoreless or there was going to be a really scruffy goal, somebody slipping, a bad bounce, keeper mishandling a ball, something of that nature. This is the kind of match that Arsenal in recent seasons has regularly found a way to lose. And as you said, there was a lot of composure. Again, 4th clean sheet out of 5. I think we have to take that, we'll get to this in a little bit, but in the bigger picture, this is the way Arteta wanted to build his club. All these new additions with White and Tomiyasu and Ramsdale, especially, we'll talk more about him too. Just shut it down. Make it very difficult for anybody to score. We know that the with youngsters on the attack, it's going to take some time for that half of the roster to congeal, to really find its spark. So, I take it as a good sign.
Yeah, it's definitely a promising sign, because, as you say, we would have found a way to lose in previous occasions there, and I believe Leicester's lost there this season as well, albeit Leicester not being at their full capacity of where we know they could be. But it's still a team that's got off to a very bright start, and they are dangerous on the attack, especially now, as I say, I mentioned Correa, they've got Trossard, they've got that little prick Maupay floating about up front as well. So it's difficult, isn't it? Because you know how Graham Potter wants to play. You know how he wants to build this team in. So for our defense, we've got Gabriel that's physical. We've got Ben White. Obviously, he knows their players very well and inside out. He I thought he had a very good game. Tomiyasu, he was resolute. He had a bit of a torrid time against Cucurella. There was a few mistakes, but I would say this is a real welcome to English football for him. Well, for any of our new signings, to be perfectly honest, that come
Right.
from abroad. But mainly for him, this was the real tester, and I think that he done well to an extent. There was a few times he got caught on the ball, but in terms of his defensive aspects, he was solid,
Mhm.
and he's still winning the aerial duels, which is a big plus for us. Um, it's, yeah, the defending was very good, and I have to really applaud Aaron Ramsdale for the save in the second half, where he
Yeah.
was covering the front post and the ball's come across, and he sprung and preventing Morpay having a tap in. So what I would say with Aaron Ramsdale, he's not a reactionary keeper; he's a proactive keeper. So he
Mhm.
anticipated where that was, and he shifted his weight from, I think it was his left to his right, to get across to that ball. And ultimately, people will say you shouldn't palm it back into your penalty area. But if you've got a striker behind you that's going to be tapping it in, then for me, if you do that, you're giving your defense half a chance to then clear it, which thankfully we did. Um, and I think with Aaron as well, he provides us with a solid base to build from, because if he isn't able to pick out one of the defenders, he'll pick out a midfielder or a winger with a precise pass. Now, we mentioned the weather conditions earlier, so that really restricted us to trying to pass from the back or getting the midfield to come deeper to receive the ball on the floor. Because obviously, if we're trying to go wide, there's that unknown element of when the wind's going to take the ball, and essentially, we tried it a few times, went out of play, and we resorted back to playing on the floor, which, into grand scheme of things, is one way to attack Brighton, but you need two or three. And I think if we had it on a drier day, we could have potentially clipped the ball over the top and got in behind them that way. But as we said, Brighton were a solid, compact unit, and I think if you're looking at this as a whole on a result, it's one of these results come the end of the season that could possibly get you top four.
Let's look at their own reaction. I was quite intrigued that Mikel Arteta after the match was saying that the point was pretty much what we deserved, and he pointed out, I don't think he ripped his club, but he pointed out they didn't handle the pressure very well. They were Brighton pressed very effectively. They pressed high from the beginning. They packed the midfield. As you said, they were taking a lot of options away, taking away what Arsenal really wanted to do, which is to play through the center. And he commented that we weren't ready for that kind of pressure. We weren't ready for that kind of pressing. What then, as the manager with a young club that's really, I mean, let's talk about the Arteta 11. We talked about it on past podcasts. He's got his group, but they're playing 4 matches, that unit. What's their next lesson, shall we say?
Well, I think their lesson from that game was, to be ready for a high intensity from the off and try to deal with it and cope with it a bit better. Obviously, that it's that game management aspect. You need your experienced players to really step up and drag the younger players through this. And although we have got a core crux of youngsters, there's some experienced youngsters in there, and that's where we need them to be stepping up as well, to be like, okay, things aren't going our way. Let's really dig in and change the momentum of this. Obviously, um, Arteta wasn't happy about the way that we dealt with it, but a point's a point. And as Big Papa Wang said, if you can't win, don't lose. So,
Don't lose, right? And this was
essentially,
a classic example of that, right?
yeah,
All right. I mean, we don't want to dwell too much on it. I mean, they did have some chances early. They did have some chances late. Saka had a really good chance right from the go, like in the second minute, and then there was he did get loose again on the right side, and he put a chip. It was deflected onto Aubameyang's head, and Aubameyang nodded that one off the post. So Arsenal did have chances. It seemed as the match went on, as the conditions got worse, those opportunities kind of dried up. But we did see some movement late when Lacazette came on as the new striker. First we really seen of him this season. What was your takeaway?
yeah. Obviously, there
I
were
know he's not your favorite player. So.
yeah, no. Just to address the other chances, I think there was another chance in the first half where it came across and Dunk looked like he slid to clear it and it went through his legs, and
Aubameyang
yeah, he
wasn't
just
ready
needed,
for it. Yeah.
no, he just needed to get a body part onto that ball, I think, and then it just flexed in. But he just stopped, which was unfortunate. But that's football, isn't it? It's on
Mhm.
another day that goes in, on another day. The run in the second half that Smith Rowe makes, it skims off the ground and flicks off the keeper's hand and nettles in the far stick. Again with the header, it could have gone in off the post, but it's that's football, and unfortunately for us, it didn't happen. But one thing I was a bit disappointed about, we didn't really utilize Saka's pace in behind Dan Burn, because you just
Mm.
noticed every time that Saka got the ball and he ran at Dan Burn, you could see Burns' butthole puckering up. It was flapping, but
Yeah.
it's difficult. It's one of these things. But as you say, we're waiting for something to click there, and I think that it will do soon.
Yeah, you could see the ideas, as you were saying. They had these where they're working up the left in the first half. A lot of these exquisite triangles. You had Lakanga, you had Aubameyang on the outside, you had Saka coming into the middle, or sometimes it was Smith Rowe or some. They were working with Odegaard on the other side. Just wonderful like patterns. Just not finding, and then they would try it in the middle, and then they would try it on the right, and they could work 4 or 5 passes together, but they couldn't get that last incisive one. And you can see what they want to do. And you were talking about this before Tottenham, and you were saying one of these matches, it's coming, it's starting to gel. They're starting to get the communication, and it worked in that match. But this
yeah,
was a much tougher, as you said, this was a much tougher defensive unit, really built to take that away. They really did pack the center of the pitch very solidly. So you were going to see a lot of close, but just off. And so maybe this isn't the game to judge them and say, oh, they regressed, or did this happen or that happened. I mean, I still like what I'm starting to see, and I'm just hoping, as you said, that it's just going to start clicking on a regular basis instead of just the one-off that we saw against Spurs.
yeah, definitely. And I think as you say, the patterns of plays are there, and I can see why we started Aubameyang and persisted with Aubameyang for quite a while in that game. And sorry, I completely bypassed your last question on Lacazette. It wasn't intentional. I can understand why we went with Aubameyang first and foremost, because Brighton do play a very high line, and they haven't exactly got the quickest of defenders. But again, it's finding that needle pass, especially in that condition. If we could have had the clip ball over the top, I think that it could have worked a lot more. But with Lacazette coming on, obviously the ball's in front of the defenders, he's pulling them out, and it's then addressing the runners going in behind and him trying to find them. I don't think Odegaard had his best game against Brighton in an Arsenal shirt, so unfortunately he was nullified quite a bit and his touches were a bit off. But He's still young. He's still going to be absolutely brilliant for us. It's just a case of it just didn't happen on the day, and sometimes that happens. But with Lacazette, it's something that will work against teams that compact. But I think that in general, we just need a bit more from our striker. But if I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because if you combine Lacazette and Aubameyang's skill set, you've got the perfect striker for this system.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's one or the other. So you're trying to cater for different needs. So there needs to be slightly different setup. It's something that can be addressed. It can be worked on. I'm pretty sure they'll be working on things on the training ground, especially with Lacazette not being international duty. So it wouldn't surprise me if he starts against Palace, to be perfectly honest.
All right. Well, let's move to Palace. I mean, I think we've taken all the juice out of the Brighton match, and let's approach Palace in quarters. As you were saying, we're 7 matches into the season. The club have reached the second international break, and it seems the way the schedule's kind of worked out. They had 3 matches, got 1 international break. It coincided with the closing of the window. They were able to bring in a couple of late signings, Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, most notably. Those guys go straight away. And then Arsenal have just finished a very successful, even though, maybe it feels a little meh to go 0-0, still 3 victories, 1 draw, no defeats. The first 3 matches before the break, total disaster, no goals, no points. Let's look at that. We know there was COVID issues that kind of scattered the roster, certainly against Brentford, far from the lineup that Arteta wanted to field. Arsenal didn't even want to play the match, but they played the match. It was a disaster. And then, of course, we all were wincing because we knew Chelsea and City were coming up, and we got the results that we dreaded. And then an international break comes. I think people were furious, but I think everybody said, okay, the club said, and the manager said, we did some really good work here. Let's see how we do. And now 10 points from 12. I think we have to take him at his word. We've seen the work. It's starting to happen. And let's start at the back. 1 goal in those 4 matches. 9 goals in the first 3. Night and day.
Yeah, it totally is. It's quite funny because you look at games before the end of the window, and we had our defense was what was it? Tierney, Mari, Holding, and Chambers.
Chambers, right?
And then
and Leno in the back, right?
Yeah. And after the window, you've got Ramsdale, Tierney, the only consistent, Gabriel, White, Tomiyasu. That in itself, I think I said on Twitter, the first lineup is like cutting your legs off and asking you to jump compared to the second. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because we've known for quite a while that Holding, he's a good squad player, but he isn't fit to start. Chambers, he's a utility player, but you're just not sure where he fits in anymore.
Right.
Tierney's Tierney. People say that he's been in bad form, but is it a case that has he been in bad form, or are we not going down the left as much, so we're not overly reliant on him? And I tend to think that it's the latter, personally. And then Gabriel coming back, and that's just absolutely massive for us, because obviously we know with Mari, he hasn't got the pace. He's a good leader in the changing room. He's a good person to have as a rotational option. But again, as a starter, is he there? No. Could we upgrade on him? Probably next summer. Yeah, probably could.
Right.
And
as you said, we were talking about this before. They have a lot of people in that original 5 that you mentioned, the Leno, Tierney, Mari, Chambers, Holding. they get flustered on the ball. They could be pressed, and Arsenal wants to play out of the back. It's a bad combination. Now they have 5 people, none of whom they all seem press resistant. They can all break it by themselves if they have to. Again, night and day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just not. It's not even being press resistant. It's just being smart in certain areas. Because you can see Rob Holding, he'll hang on to the ball till the last, get closed down, and then lose it, and we're being countered. Same could be said with Chambers. Mari, not so much because he knows that the recovery pace isn't there. But I think even if they cutting off the passing lanes, it's again difficult for them because they haven't got the skill set to pick out a pinpoint pass.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes things very difficult for the midfielder because it's either up around the neck or it's like in the gut area, so it's difficult to control there. If it's passing, it's usually to the weak foot. It's not onto the foot that the person can use to immediately turn. It's a lot of intricate things that, in the grand scheme of things, makes it very hard to counter attack and to get your attack set from that, because they're essentially putting you on the weakness. It then allows the opposition to get back into formation, form up, and then again you're starting from scratch, albeit a bit higher up the pitch, to then think to yourself, okay, they're back in position. We've now got to try and break them down again when we could have just gone at them. It's difficult, but then you say that with Gabriel and White at the back, both of them are very able to ping that big diagonal ball to the winger, to the winger's strong side, to allow them to turn and get going. And if that isn't the case, both are equally adept to running out of the back line into the midfield and finding that simple pass, because they've made a 20-yard run there. It's broken the lines. It's putting the opposition on the back turn. They're chasing back, and we get more options. If a defender wants to come out and try and press the striker, if that ball gets dummied, then somebody else is in behind. And adding to that as well, Tierney bombing on, that opens up the space. You've got Tomiyasu that will come and sit in. But again, he's another one that's able to play both-footed passes to, again, the person's stronger side to allow them to get on him and counter-attack. It's really is night and day. And I think that it just gives us a lot more. It gives us more building blocks to create that attack. And as I said, I think if we can, I think there's 2 things that's missing from this Arsenal team right now. I think the other one thing is that we need to find a ball-playing progressive midfielder to play next to Thomas Partey. And I think the other thing is a goal-scoring winger. Now, that's not to say that Emil Smith-Rowe can't turn into that, because he scored again on international duty. We've got Saka. He's done the same also. But I think that if you want to give them a bit of rotation, you've got a Martinelli, but I think that he needs to go out on loan at the moment. But if you bring in an experienced goal-scoring winger, then I think that really completes this team.
And let's talk about that. I wanted to go back to Ramsdale, but we can do that later. But let's talk about this, because again, this ties in with something we were talking about before. With Saka, Saka's really cemented his position in this quartet of matches since the first break as the right-sided winger. It's put Nico Pepe down, and I think it's kind of an open question. It's not a matter of if they're going to sell Nico Pepe. Are they going to wait till the summer? Are they going to try to do something in January? And it could be that he is the lure that gets them that veteran scorer, as you said. Like, should the club explore this? I mean, we're not that far away from the January window. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think there'll be much movement on that in the January window unless a surprise opportunity arises of, say, somebody not signing a contract. Um, poss- I think it could be Martinez because I don't believe that contract's been signed as of yet. But we'll talk about that later on in the show because that again ties into Lacazette's situation.
Sure, we need to talk about him too, right?
I think realistically we could see possibly one midfielder coming in. We'd be planning for that now, but in terms of Nico Pepe, unless a big offer comes in, cough cough Newcastle. If something like that was to arise, then yeah, I think the club will seriously look at that and then go, yeah, we've pretty much recouped what we spent on him, and see you later.
I hadn't thought about that, but this I think back to City when they arrived and they wanted and started to poach Arsenal's roster at the time, going after Adebayor, going after Nasri and players like that. And I think one of the things that Arsene Wenger did then, which was quite smart, he didn't want to lose these players, but he knew it's like, well, if here's a club with money to burn, I'm gonna maximize my return on this player. And with Pepe, I mean, it seems almost ideal. It's like you're thinking this is a depressed asset because he's not starting. But if you have a club like Newcastle that's just itching to spend, you might get all your money back right there because they certainly aren't going to suffer pain. They can pay any amount.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in terms of Nico Pepe, as much as I like the player and I think that he can come good for the club, he's just inconsistent, to put it mildly. I think that his game doesn't suit a possession game. And I think ultimately he's a confidence player as well. So if you put in all three of them into the mix, so the confidence player, the lack of counter-attacking aspect to the Arsenal game now, I think that his confidence is a bit shot. He's a bit down on his luck. He doesn't really try and beat a man anymore as he used to when he first come here. So yeah, he's not been offered a new contract. I don't believe Arteta's really considers him as a long-term player here. Yeah, it's disappointing overall, but it's still the lingering ghost of Raul Sanllehi.
And to address that, now you were talking a lot about the back line, which is specifically Gabriel White. I want to throw in my 2 cents because another thing that I've seen that you pointed out is addition by subtraction. And I don't mean this as beating up on Bernd Leno. I like Bernd Leno quite a bit, but we've seen with Aaron Ramsdale, one of the things that's now gone missing that we did see, which was kind of one of the weaknesses of Leno's game, is that he would sometimes hang people like Xhaka out to dry, put the ball on the wrong shoulder, lead them into pressure, wrong foot his defender. And so playing out the back, it didn't happen that often, but it happened often enough where a goal, he'd send the ball out very sloppily and then it'd come right back into his own goal. And when you're looking, people are pointing the finger at Granit because obviously he's a lightning rod for this club, or they would point it at somebody like Rob Holding. They would say, nah, the keeper didn't give him any help there. That's evaporated. And I think, and in addition to that, is just taking away the obvious mistake. You're not giving away the short counterattack from the edge of your box, but his ability to really play out, where people, the Martinez fanboys would talk about that. He had the ability to kind of give the long pass to the wings and just start the attack from the back. And I'm starting to see that more and more and more as Aaron Ramsdale settles in. So it's kind of a two level benefit to my eyes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
All right.
Yeah, you've nailed that there.
All right. Well, okay. So let's go back because I think people are intrigued because we know the next step, and we talked about this. Arteta really focused on solidifying the back, as we said it. 1 goal, 4 matches. That's a blueprint. Now we know, obviously, the goals, and this has been a problem going back to late Emery and early Arteta and this year's Arteta, Arsenal have trouble scoring goals from open play. And I'm guessing that's got to be the point of emphasis coming out of this break. How can they, is it just a matter of more repetition? What do they need to do to open the attack up that next bit, given the talent that's on hand?
Do you know what? I don't actually think there's that much that needs to be done. I think that it's just training ground scenarios, playing to strengths, and if it reverts back to being semi-counter-attacking, a bit like how Liverpool do, then so be it. If that's how you're going to get the best out of your wide players, then that's how you need to maybe adapt. But obviously, moving forward, I think that the pattern of plays through the middle just need to work on that. Obviously, open up the opposition's weaknesses and really prey on their weaknesses. And I think one thing that I don't think that we do that well yet is setting small traps in the middle of the pitch. So we lure teams into, okay, you want to play there? Can't play there. Come play into this channel where we set our little traps so we can spring on you, win the ball, and counter-attack high up the pitch. I think that's where we need to work on a bit more. But other than that, patterns of play, happy with. It's just that little element of it, I think that we really need to work on. And if we work on that, I think the goals will come from there.
Is this just a matter too of being impatient? You know, we look at it. Smith Rowe, we know, is going to come good and come big. Saka's already shown flashes of that. You know, he's still a kid. They're still kid. They're both still kids.
Yep.
You know, and I think it's just a matter of like, let them evolve. It's happening. We want it right now, and I think that's part of the frustration. But at the same time, there's no shortcut to that.
No, we're in a rock and a hard place in that aspect, because we want it right now, we need it right now, but we also need to let them evolve and not put on that added pressure of going, you need to be the saviors of this team. But ultimately, they're gonna learn with game time as they keep going on, and that's how things will evolve. But I think that if it doesn't work out, I don't want to be seeing slander on timelines on Twitter and things like that, because the support in the stadium compared to the support online is night and day. The stadium's behind the team, they're behind the manager, I'd say 99% are. And you know, you look on Twitter and you look at it and you just think, am I seeing something different to what these people are actually watching? Because it seems that agendas are so cloudy in people's observations, and it's like, come on, man, just get behind the team and support.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It seems to be cool not to support now and just throw out vile retro round at players, round at the manager, and it's boring, it's tired, it's tedious. But you know, the inside the stadium is refreshing because the people support, they're there. Yeah, there are one odd moans, but the people can appreciate what the club are trying to do on the field, and that's ultimately what counts. And we will get there. But
that's what they hear, right? So
yeah, exactly. But you know, Ref, as we're now in a cancel culture, if people aren't getting their way, they'll throw the toys out the pram because they want something new and shiny, and it doesn't work in football, unfortunately.
No, it doesn't work in anything. These things, you're building something, and you can't just throw it together and hope that it clicks. But now, I want to talk about Palace. Well, but I want to park that for a moment because you did mention, and we need to talk about Alex Lacazette. Stories in the press, big reports today that multiple suitors are lined up for him. Obviously, he can sign a pre-contract in January.
Yep.
Is this a situation where the club might look to move him in January if they know he's already got one foot out the door. And if that situation presents itself, if somebody puts a lot of money, say, as you said, Newcastle, and we know Newcastle have petrodollars to burn right now, does that push them into the market if they get a big payout for him? We talked about Pepe, and I agree with you. I think Pepe is probably something for the summer, but Lacazette could be a windfall that we're not expecting. We weren't expecting at the beginning of the season, certainly when he didn't move in August. So who do you look for? Do you go for that winger? Do you go who's on your radar if Lacazette, let's put it this way, let's start with this. You think the club would entertain moving him in January?
Again, rock and hard place because you've got the African Cup of Nations, so you're losing Pepe, you're losing Aubameyang from your front line. And if you sell Lacazette as well as, are you then relying on Balogun and Eddie Nketiah? And Eddie Nketiah could be another one with his head out the door. So essentially, you're relying on Balogun to lead the line, and that's a lot of pressure on a young kid. I think if the opportunity presented itself to, say, include Lacazette into a deal for Lautaro Martinez if he doesn't sign his new deal, which I don't believe he has. And Ryan pointed out to me, I think it was early part of last week, that they need to make another 100 million euros in January to break even. So
and let's talk about this. There is some smoke to that from the last window. Lautaro Martinez, I think people a lot of look at him and say, "Oh, there's no chance." You know, we heard that about other players, but there was some real smoke there.
Yeah,
with that name. Arsenal Football Club. I'm not just talking him in general. Everybody knows his talent.
Yeah, and I think again, Inter have put themselves in a bit of a difficult position because again they've just let 6 months of his contract run down, and if he's not going to sign this new one, have they lost out on small money? Possibly. But if, as we know in the summer, money wasn't an object, it was squad space. If Lacazette goes, you can include him into the deal for Martinez. You can push his wages towards Martinez, and I think he's on 150 to 180 grand.
For Lacazette, right?
Yeah,
but Martinez is well under. I mean, he's closer to 100, but he's not making 100. So
no, he's not. Yeah. He's making peanuts over in Italy. So if you're pushing that towards him, he will be receptive to that. And I think if that's the case, then that deal can get done quite quickly. But if obviously wages for Inter is a problem, then Newcastle could be an option for Lacazette. I saw this week that they've been linked to him. He could be one to kickstart them. I think Lacazette would probably go there because obviously he'll be number one starter, and for him to potentially lead a revolution there, it could be appealing.
And they would extend his contract. I don't think they would blink about that. I think he would appreciate that. As we know, this is probably his last contract. I think he would love to, if nothing else, extend the very generous wage that he's getting at Arsenal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if Martinez wasn't an option, I would be looking at Ollie Watkins, to be perfectly honest.
And we know he likes Arsenal Football Club. Have you been watching his comments in the press? He was not shy about saying that he would love to play someday. That was the qualifier for Arsenal Football Club. So I think it's
and again, it's smart if you're targeting that type of player. It's smart recruitment because you're getting players that want to fight for the badge and do their absolute maximum for the badge, and that's one thing that we've really lacked in a lot of the transfers of past regimes, and I must stress past regimes.
Right. So let's look at January very quickly. Let's take like a minute on this. Just a quick snap answer. So maybe one incoming, maybe the midfielder, maybe that attacking option to bolster. With, as you said, African Cup of Nations is a very real consideration that this club has to take into account.
I think one incoming, maybe one loan. But I think the second mini overhaul will be in the summer.
Right, and this was the big overhaul this summer. I think they did patch a lot of holes and put a lot of the core, as you said. This is the core. That was the core building window, and it wasn't flashy, I think, as many people hoped, but it was solid. I think we're learning that now, looking at the defense. And I guess we've talked about all pod, looking at just how settled, how much more stable, emotionally stable. We've said it. Arsenal's been a brittle football club. They're not brittle anymore.
No.
Moving to Palace. We've got to talk about Palace. Okay, it's not coming up next Monday, but interesting club. Only one victory, but what a victory. They thrashed Spurs. But only 2 defeats. You know, Patrick Vieira's kind of found the middle. He's got a club that's pretty good at playing to the level of its competition. 4 draws from 7. That were a little bit worrisome for an Arsenal club that's still not consistently putting the ball in the net. I mean, Palace seems to be able to score, but they also give up a lot of goals. So it's kind of interesting the way that they've come out under Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. Again, it'll be good to see Vieira at the Emirates, a familiar face around Arsenal Football Club, and I think that he'll enjoy the day. But I think in terms of his Palace side, I think the way to really nullify them is to cut off Conor Gallagher in the middle and to really restrict any passes into Zaha, because he'll create issues. They've also got Elise. I believe he's coming back from an injury now, so he'll be dangerous. You know, they're able to have a good pattern of play. They're playing 4-3-3 now as well, which I think helps them. Just looking at their last midfield, it was Gallagher, Mihailovic, and James McCarthy. I think if you, as I say, Conor Gallagher, you cut that off. I'm not too worried about Mihailovic or James Arthur. It's just cutting off that diagonal from Gallagher to Zaha, and Zaha into Edouard. I think if you cut that off, Palace haven't got much there. And looking at their right side of their midfield, if you target that alongside Tyrick Mitchell and Gahai at the back, you could have some success there. But I think it's just a case of if you suffocate them, you'll get the better outcome over Palace.
Given that, give me a prediction.
3-1 Arsenal.
Okay, I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal. I'm tempted to say 2-1, but I'm becoming a believer. I've seen enough. You know, I do believe in this back line. They're at home. Palace have had some success at home scoring goals, but I think, you know, being at the Emirates, it's not long for them to travel, but being the visiting team. And we saw this the last time Arsenal played in front of the home crowd. They really drew some energy against Tottenham, and I think they'll get more of that love, and I think they'll thrive on that love. So I'm going to say 2-0. But again, that kickstarts a new set. Again, we got to wait till Monday. I wish that wasn't so, but I'm happy Arsenal football is back. Sam, I'm going to give you the final word this part.
Yeah, I think coming back for a Monday night game, it's imperative that we get that 3 points, because obviously most of the teams would have played over the weekend, and to keep us in touch with the top 5, we need to keep them within arm's reach and capitalize on any slip ups from any teams in and around that at the moment. But I think in terms of how the season's looked after the first international break, it's looked very positive. And I think we as fans just need to temper the expectation to say, okay, if we're not steamrolling teams, let's get the 3 points, worry about any performance and whatnot at the end of the season, because ultimately 3 points are what matter. Getting into that top four is the aim. But even if we don't get top four, top five is the minimum.
Mhm.
And just getting that European football back in at the Emirates, and then we build from there, really.
Right. All right.
Just-
Well, again,
Yeah.
that's it.
Just to add, just to add as well.
No.
With I think what a lot of fans have got to realise is this team is still in transition, and unfortunately, due to past regimes, this team's been in transition for quite a while. But I think with the current setup that we've got in place, it's one that will finally end that transition and have a team to really build and thrive on.
And so I'm looking forward to getting used to at least, starting with the midfield with Partey and the back five and Smith Rowe and Saka. You can see that there's the core, that there's about 7 names there who are going to be they're going to grow together. And that's very exciting to me. So, again, we want to thank all of you out in Pod World for following us here on YouTube, or when you follow us, whenever you listen to us. Check back with us on Twitter, check back with us on our webpage. Good to have football back, Sam. Good to have you back.
And
we'll
just
have
to
Ryan back. Yes.
And just to add, subscribe to the old channel, get the old cheesy YouTube mantra in there.
Yes. So we take requests. We answer questions. Happy to talk to you. All right. So again, thank you. For me in the States, I'm Raphael. For Sam, we bid you adieu. Talk to you next Tuesday. Hopefully you have 3 points to discuss.